So, do I believe in the moon landing? I do not.
So do I think the moon landing was fake? No.
I think the moon landing was fake. I do.
Do I think the moon landing is fake? No.
Do I think the moon landing was fake? No, it probably wasn't. The actual engineering marvel of American industry is so far powerful that even in this time of disinformation, time where governments like to censor and control the output of information, we need to actually look into the actual implications for the financial justifications of the Apollo program to see if the moon landing was really fake or not. So a lot of videos on social media put out many links and sources to proofs that the moon landing was fake. But I want to delve into the economic implications that are behind it that would have demonstrated in regards to the technological superiority of American power across the globe at the time. So not only did the moon landing increase the diplomatic power of the U.S. across nations that hadn't been aligned with the U.S., by putting $25 billion in the 1960s into research and development through the Apollo program, the economic input basically is the cause for the rise of Silicon Valley in California. So by generating hundreds of billions of dollars through the government-sanctioned research as a nation, we improved very rapidly with our technological initiatives, as well as increasing the GDP overall and over that time. The proof that the moon landing was not faked is highly overwhelming, and to some it can instill a nature of disbelief from the fact that the narrative pertains to a time of contention and government control in regards to the changes of power, as well as the initiative to have a country that operates outside of the communist control.
The theory of the moon landing came from a lot of different sources, like inside sources. One of them was Bill Kaysing, who's like an ex-Navy and NASA contractor, and he published a book called We Never Went to the Moon, which came out in 1976, which was like around the time, right afterwards. He actually claimed that the Apollo missions was a $30 billion hoax, and he was like directly involved inside the operation. And he also said that the Apollo 11 was not capable of surviving the Van Allen radiation belt, and he has scientific evidence to back that up, which is cited in his book, We Never Went to the Moon. And he also pointed out different things. He pointed to the fact that it was probably filmed in Hollywood or Area 51. He pointed out that the flag is waving and there shouldn't be any wind on the moon, so that didn't really make a lot of sense. And then a lot of people believe that Stanley Kubrick helped film the moon. He was like a famous director at the time. He made a movie called The Shining and other stuff, and some other space movie. And then whistleblowers that came out after the Apollo 11 died in a fire. So a lot of people, including Kaysing, suspected that they were being silenced further. And why would people believe something like this? Well, at the time there was a lot of mistrust of the government because they kept lying to the public. 1969, the Pentagon Papers showed that the U.S. lied about Vietnam. 1972, the Watergate scandal actually led to President Nixon's resignation. These events just really shattered the public's trust of the government. And people just started questioning the official narrative at this point.
Say you're a tech company. Say you're trying to develop a phone and you're competing with companies like Apple, Samsung, Google, you name it. And you have this phone that you claim has all these amazing features that make it better than the competition. And people believe you. They buy your product because they believe it's better than Apple, Samsung, all these other phones. And then they get the phone and it turns out to be all a complete lie. The phone has none of the options and none of the cool features that you claim it has. So now your customers are going to be pretty upset because you lied to them, and now no one's going to trust you and no one's going to buy from you anymore because now you've developed this image as a fraud. And because of that, you're going to lose all your customers. Financially, you're going to be in the drain, and the company's going to go under. And then the company goes under, all these people are going to be looking for jobs, and then they go somewhere else. But then these other companies they go to, they're not going to want to hire them because they're going to see, oh, you are part of this tech company that lied about this phone. Who's to say you're not going to lie about something in our company and put our company in the ground? So now these employees have, in addition to the company, these employees have lost trust and credibility as well. And just overall, it's a giant dumpster fire is essentially what it is. So now say you're a nation. Take the US, for example, in this case, they want to go to the moon, and they're doing it not only for themselves, but for the sake of being the dominant nation in the world and beating the Soviet Union in the space race. They put all this time and money into it. All these hours to train the astronauts, all the hours of engineering, all the planning, all the scheduling, and then they finally do it. They launch this rocket up, land a man on the moon, mission complete. Now, if you were to lie about something as big as that, your country, the US, is going to be in a lot of trouble. They've lied about this mission, and now they're not going to get a job anymore because they're seen as frauds too.
Because the effort and the expense and the resources to go ahead and put the moon landing into effect is way too tremendous to actually do so, especially at that period in time. The only reason to put a man on the moon, like practically, exists to get a man just on the moon. There's no reason. Obviously, politically, it was a huge deal because we're in a Cold War with the USSR at the time, and they had just put a man into space. So obviously the next step is to go ahead and put a man directly on the moon. That sort of shock, that sort of kind of one step ahead can also be achieved in just faking the landing and making them think that you're up there. They have no way of actually checking. There's no satellites up there to check. So, especially at this point in time, it's much more effective to just go ahead and fake it, make a good product, make a good film, and put it out there, and then the people believe it, the USSR believes it, everyone goes ahead and fully buys into what you've put out there. A lot less effort, a lot less expense, and it achieves the same political objectives. Now, obviously a lot of people will say that, well, it couldn't have been faked because if they were to fake it, that would absolutely take away all the influence and the inspiration that's given to this next generation of people that want to explore in space and want to go ahead and make that next step and not just going to the moon, but going to other planets, going to Mars. But again, the same inspiration is given if it was faked. And in accomplishing those same objectives, you're again being a lot less expensive, a lot less effort is being put in, and overall you're achieving the same effectiveness, you're achieving the same purpose without all of the clutter of expense and they have no way to check. They have no way to check whether there's an actual man or there's an actual presence on the moon, especially at that time when there's no satellites.
So the space race was a major aspect of the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States. The Cold War began at the end of World War II, where the two remaining global superpowers began a fight for global dominance, right? So that's the Soviet Union and then the United States. And then they engaged in an arms race that really heightened with the space race. So the space race really began when both the USSR and the US were trying to build long-range missiles so they could reach each other. And then it really took off when the Soviets launched the world's first artificial satellite, Sputnik 1, which was in 1957. And then the Soviets then took the second victory in 1961 when they launched Vostok 1. And Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Alexeyevich Gagarin became the first human to travel into space. And then in 1969, obviously, that's when the moon landing happened. The U.S. had to take that major victory and have the first humans to land on the moon. Like, politically and historically, it doesn't make sense for them to have faked that victory, especially since we both have the technology and the motivation for us to go to the moon. If it was faked, Russia would have figured out eventually, especially since they had so many spies and then also satellites, right? And so it's not something that the United States politically could have risked. They needed that victory over Russia, and the moon landing was the way to do it.